Hey everybody, thanks for clicking on this video. Today we're going to be working with the binomial theorem to expand different polynomials. If you want to follow along, the links to the companion worksheet are in the description below. Also, don't forget to click that subscribe button to stay up to date on all the videos we have coming out on the channel. So let's get started. Now, from the last video, we talked about the idea of the binomial theorem, and that is how we can expand these binomial expressions. But now we're going to deal with things other than just a and b or x and y. Now we're going to include numbers in them. And so the thing to keep in mind is, what are the coefficients? And so that's what this exponent tells us. And so, referring back to the video that we did previously, when we expanded out as a plus b to the fourth, the coefficients were 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. Now, if you didn't see that video, you want to go watch that one first so that you can see how we came up with these numbers, because we're going to be referring to them quite a bit. Now, what we do next is we start with this quantity, x, to the fourth power. And then the powers on that are going to go down. So it becomes x to the fourth, x to the third, x squared, and x to the first. And on the last term, it doesn't have an x because that would have been x to the 0 power. And oftentimes you won't see people write that. And I'll just write it for the first example. And then after that, we won't need it. And then we start with the other term, which is -3, and you have to include that negative there. So -3 starts with the 0 power, and then we go up. So -3 to the first, -3 squared, -3 cubed, and then -3 to the fourth power. Again, anything to the 0 power is just going to equal 1. So this first term right here is going to be x to the fourth. Now with this term, we have a 4, but we also have a -3 to the first. So that means our coefficient is -12, x cubed. With this one, it's 6 times -3 squared. So that's going to be positive 54x squared. Then we have 4 times -3 cubed. So that's 4 times -27, which is -108x. And then finally we have -3 to the fourth power, so that's going to be plus 81. So there is this binomial expanded out. Because we take this number and we raise it to whatever power is called for, depending on the term, and then we multiply it by the coefficient out front. So let's try another one. Here, our exponent is 5. So that means we're going to have our coefficients of 1, 5, 10, 10, 5, and 1. So first we start with p to the fifth, and then it goes down. So p to the fourth, p to the third, p squared, and p to the first. And since from the first example we saw that x to the 0 is 0, there's no need to write p to the 0 here. Now we have 2r. So we're going to start here at 2r to the first, 2r squared, 2r cubed, 2r to the fourth, and then 2r to the fifth. So now we have p to the fifth plus. Now we have 5 times 2. That's going to give us 10. P to the fourth r. Then we have 10 p cubed. Now 2r is being squared, so that means the 2 is squared and the r is squared. So this is 40p cubed r squared. For our next term, we have 10 times p squared times 2 cubed. So that's going to be 80 p squared r cubed. Then we have 5 times 2 to the fourth. 2 to the fourth is 16 times 5 is going to be 80, and that's p 2r to the 4th. And then finally, we have 1 times 2 to the 5th. And 2 to the 5th is 32r to the 5th. So here, the 2r, we had to be aware of that number because we had to multiply it by that coefficient. The other thing to always be aware of is that when you have two different variables, the powers always have to add up to 5, at least if it's p and r, as long as there's no exponents there. I'll show you an example later on of how it'll work if you have something like x squared or something like that. So with number 3, here we've got x and y, and they both have coefficients in front of them inside. So since it's 3, it's going to be 1, 3, 3, 1. And so we start with 4x to the 3rd, and then 4x, that exponent is going to go down. So we have 2 and 1. Then we have negative 3y, and then that power is going up. So negative 3y squared and negative 3y cubed. So for our first term, we have 4 cubed, so that's going to be 64x cubed minus, and it's going to be minus because we have 3 times 4 squared, and 4 squared is 16 times 3 is 48, but then we also have to multiply by negative 3 again. And so that's going to give us minus 144 x squared y. Here we have 3 times 4, which is 12, times negative 3 squared, that's positive 9. So positive 9 times 12 is going to be positive 108 x y squared. And then finally we have negative 3 cubed, which is negative 27 y cubed. So on this second page, here we've got some terms that are a little different. Here we've got square root of p and square root of q. Now our exponent is 6. So that means our coefficients are 1, 6, 15, 20, 15, 6, and 1. Now we're going to start with square root of p, and that's going to be to the 6th power. So let's fill that in. And that power is going to go down 4, 3, 2, and then 1. Then we have negative q, negative square root of q actually. So negative square root of q, and that's squared. Negative square root of q cubed. Negative square root of q to the 4th. Negative square root of q to the 5th. And then negative square root of q to the 6th power. So when we have square root of p to the 6th, that's going to simplify to p cubed. Now, for this one, we have 6, but don't forget that negative. That negative means our coefficient is negative 6. Now, we have square root of p multiplied by itself 5 times. If you multiply it by itself once, you get p. If you multiply it 2 more times, you get p squared. But that leaves another p left. That also leaves q underneath the radical. So we'll put them together. So we have negative 6p squared times the square root of pq. So next we have 15. Now it's positive because this is being squared, and so there is no negative. Now because square root of p is being raised to the 4th, we're just left with p squared times q. Here for this middle term, we have negative 20 because the negative is being cubed, so it will stay negative. And then we have a p that comes out of this radical as well as a q. but that's still going to leave one p and one q left inside the radical, because we need two of these, square root of p times square root of p, to give us p, but there's one left over because it's raised to the third. And the same thing goes for q. For the next term, it's plus 15. This is square root of p squared, so that's just going to be p. This is square root of q to the fourth, so that's going to be q squared. Here, this is going to be negative 6. Here it's just square root of p, so can't do anything about that. Square root of q to the fifth power. So actually, should I rewrite that? Q squared goes out front, and then we have a p and a q. And then finally, we have plus q to the third power. For the next one, we have an exponent of 4. So it's 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. Those are our coefficients. And we start with 2x squared, but that whole quantity is to the fourth. And then we have 2x squared, that quantity is cubed. 2x squared, that quantity is squared. And then 2x squared, that quantity is raised to the first. Then we multiply that by 3y cubed. And then 3y cubed squared, 3y cubed cubed, and then finally 3y cubed to the fourth. So this exponent of 4 distributes to the 2 and the x squared. So 2 to the fourth is 16. X squared to the fourth is x to the eighth, because we multiply exponents. We have 4 times 2, which is cubed. So 4 times 2 to the third times the 3 that's also there. So this is 96, x to the sixth, y cubed. Next we have 6, and we're multiplying that times 2 squared times 3 squared. So that's 216, x to the fourth, y to the sixth. Next we have 4 times 2, which is 8, times 3 cubed, which is 27. So that's 216. X squared is to the first, so that's just x squared. And then 3 cubed, y cubed is y to the ninth. And then finally 3 to the fourth is 81, y to the 12th, because it's y cubed, all raised to the fourth. And then finally, for this last one, we have a to the negative first plus b to the negative second cubed. So our exponents are 1, 3, 3, 1. I don't have as many, so I can spread them out. So we have a to the negative 1. We start that cubed. A to the negative 1 squared, and a to the negative 1. Then we have b to the negative 2, b to the negative 2 squared, and then b to the negative 2 cubed. So we distribute this exponent. So we have a to the negative 3. Here we have coefficient of 3, a to the negative 2, b to the negative 2. Here we have a to the negative 1, b to the negative 4. And then for this last one, we have b to the negative 6. Now to write this out with positive exponents, a to the negative third means 1 over a cubed. Here, the 3 does not have a negative exponent, so it stays on top. But the a squared and the b squared, they go down below. Here we have a times b to the fourth, and then here we have 1 over b to the sixth power. And there's our answer. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have suggestions or problems you want to see worked out, type a comment below. To support the channel, click the Patreon link to help keep this going. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, the best way to understand something is to do it.